Hello, all of you beautiful magical beings. Welcome to another week of the Power Divination. I am Ahaumna, the founder of Destiny Mapping, and I am bringing you the weekly energy report for the week of January 27th through February 2nd of 2020. In the Power Divination, we bring you 3 different ways of looking at the energy for the week. We look at your sidereal astrology, we look at your human design, and we look at the gene keys for the collective. So let's get started. Bringing you on over to the zodiac for the week. Now, I'm going to be real with y'all. This week, it's all about relationships. Intimate relationships, partnerships, karmic relationships. And we're going to see this not only in the zodiac, we are also going to be seeing this in the human design. And we might see that relationships that we once thought were golden, the golden couple, and we might see that new ones start to percolate. Though I would say that right now is not a really great time to begin new relationships, to just kind of date and play around. If you're in that phase where you're thinking about, oh, maybe exploring a new person, right now is a time to just play and not commit. Because a lot of things are transitioning, and a lot of the relationships that might be coming in right now might be rooted in really deep karmic patterns. And we're going to talk about what that is and why that is. And if you are someone who is transitioning a relationship at this time, hopefully this will serve you. So here we have on the screen Monday. So just so y'all are aware, if this is your first time watching the Power Divination, we look at the sidereal astrology, which is the absolute precision of where the zodiac, where the planets are at in relationship to the earth right now. If you pointed your Stargazer app up to the sun, you would see that the sun is in Capricorn. The sun is not yet in Aquarius. And in the center of the circle, we are looking at Monday's zodiac. The green planets on the outside are the transits on Sundays, where the planets will be at on Sunday. Now, one thing that I'm going to really look at here, so we have a conjunction happening between Neptune and Venus in the 12th house of Aquarius. See, 2121, Venus, Neptune. Now we are also still looking at Pluto-Saturn conjunction. So we've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks on the Power Divination. Remember, this is happening through mid-March is when we're going to see this energy lighten up of what's happening in this dance between Pluto and Saturn. And if you are interested in what that means, go back to the last 2 weeks of the Power Divination, because I really dive deep, especially 2 weeks ago, in what Pluto and Saturn, this conjunction really means for humanity. Because I'm not going to be diving into that in this video. That being said, go back, watch those 2 reports. They are still very relevant today when it comes to talking about Pluto and Saturn. Now, we have a lot of conjunctions. What conjunctions are? Planets are holding hands, right? They're teaming up. They're saying, hey, buddy, let's work together right now. Let's see how we can energize each other for the collective. So when we're talking about this relationship dynamic, we are really looking at Venus and Neptune here. Now, Neptune reveals to us where we are living in fantasy, where we are potentially operating from delusion, where we might not be seeing reality clearly. Now, fantasy is not necessarily always bad. Fantasy helps us to realize dreams. That being said, when we get stuck in the fantasy and we don't ground ourselves in reality is when we can end up being in relationships that are not actually serving our highest best. Now, why are we talking about relationships when Neptune isn't necessarily dealing with relationships? It's because of this Venus conjunction. Venus, the guardian of our romantic interests, is conjunct with Neptune. And then it's happening in the 12th house, which is like really deep energy, right? If we were looking at partnership astrological placements, and we were looking at, a composite chart for 2 people, and we see a big, heavy 12th house energy, usually I would say, maybe this is not a relationship that you really want to invest long-term time into. I once had a partnership with someone that lasted about a month and a half, and we had 8 planets in the 12th house. Boy, was that a doozy of a month and a half. That being said, we both consciously knew that that moment in time was for the 2 of us to do really deep, deep healing work. And that through this energy that we brought in together, through so much 12th house energy, that we were going to be able to mirror to each other the parts of ourselves that we could not see. And I released more in that month and a half and became more clear on areas that I was out of alignment, to actually calling in the beautiful relationship that I was really ready for, except I energetically wasn't ready for, because I was still holding on to so much anger towards the masculine. And this beautiful human came in, all this 12th house energy together in our charts, and we just like brought all this anger to the surface and helped to heal a lot in such a short space of time. So that's what the 12th house does. When there's a lot of 12th house energy in a composite in a relationship chart, like, that relationship is going to be massively transformative and likely very challenging. It was not an easy dynamic, because that's what the 12th house does. It forces us to go deep into the darkness of our psyche and to realize where we have been not necessarily living in integrity with what we truly want to call forth in our lives. And then it also allows us to go on a really deep, profound spiritual journey, because through going into our darkness, we illuminate it, we bring it into the light. So having this Venus Neptune conjunction, and right now on Monday, as the moon moves forward, the moon is going to come into conjunction with Neptune and Venus in the next day, right? So the moon is going to pass through here. So it's going to be a really powerful time in relationship dynamics, where our emotions, we're also going to see we're really operating from an emotional authority during this period of time as well, when we get to the human design. So I'll be sure to touch base on that when we shift over. That being said, this is a really powerful time for relationships to either transform and become something higher, more aligned, more beautiful, more grounded and tangible. Or it's also going to reveal where we are in addiction in our relationship, where we are just addicted to the fantasy of what we want in a relationship, and it's keeping us in relationships that are not necessarily serving our highest and best. So like I said, a lot of relationships might be transforming right now, and in transformation, it might be ending how it was in order for it to become something more. Now, I say it that way because we are always transforming, and the end of a relationship, no longer being intimate or, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it, with someone, doesn't mean that you have to end and it be angry and it be hostile and it be, I never talk to that person again. If we come from our heart, we can recognize a natural ending point for a relationship and allow it to evolve into something different. And sometimes that something different means separating, while still acknowledging what that container allowed for you to realize and to heal and to grow and to evolve. It doesn't mean you have to continue to talk to that person. It also doesn't mean you have to end bitter and hostile and aggressive, right? That's old school, old patriarchal way of breaking up, right? It doesn't have to be a breakup. It can be a transformation that naturally leads you on separate paths. That starts happening right now. So I wanted to just be really clear on that. Now, from that standpoint, we're going to start to see here that the core of what we're really looking for when these relationships transform is freedom, is sovereignty. And when we get into the gene keys of this week, we're really going to dial in on the importance of this energy, right? So we're looking at two planets and one, we'll call it base, in the zodiac right now, right? Of all of the planets, we're really dialing in on this piece because of what's also happening in the human design and the gene key as well. So when we look at all pieces, not only the solar, what's happening in our solar system, also how the solar system is imprinting into our collective DNA, we can really see what is most important to really dial into within the zodiac this week. And it's the relationship dynamic, and it's spaces where we are holding on to addictive, codependent patterns. And what this energy is ultimately inviting us into is to recognize where we have been out of integrity with sovereignty, where we have been idealizing, and where we have been codependent, and where we have been giving our power away to something outside of ourselves. because that's what Aquarius ultimately is inviting us into, is a realization of how we have been out of sovereignty, out of freedom unknowingly, and how to bring ourselves back into sovereignty. Now, that doesn't mean that all relationships are ending right now, right? There are a lot of sovereign relationships that are very supportive, and those relationships will continue to flourish through this time. They'll continue to grow deeper and more meaningful and more valuable through this time, because we recognize, like, wow, this is such a beautiful, empowered way of relating. And that's really the future that we're stepping into through relationships. Right? Now, we still have this 11th house stellium. Remember, a stellium is anytime there are 4 or more planets in the same house or the same sign. So right now, it's a stellium in the 11th house. As you can see, Pluto and Saturn are still in Sagittarius, 28, 29 degrees Sagittarius. So they've not yet fully moved into Capricorn, which will be happening in the very near future, next coming week or so. So within this 11th house stellium, which we've been talking about because we've been in an 11th house stellium for the last month or so now, is really an emphasis on community and on humanity as a whole, right? That is a theme of 2020 that we're seeing so far, is like, hey, it is time for us to stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking about humanity, start thinking about the planet, start thinking about our global community and how we can come together and support each other to move forward into a new age, into the age of Aquarius, which will be the next, where all this energy will come into next, will be move through Capricorn now. We were in Sagittarius 11th house stellium, beginning of this year, throughout most of January. Now, the stellium is moving towards coming into Capricorn, right? With the Sun and Mercury in Capricorn, and Saturn will be coming into Capricorn soon, and then Pluto will be coming into Capricorn. It's really about how do we actually build structures and systems and order to the whole that allows us to really care for each other, right? So in the Sagittarius energy, how that shifts is we start to have the idea, right? We start to have the vision. We start to see what's possible. And then Capricorn says, okay, it's all well and groovy to have the vision, to see what's possible. Now we need to have a real plan, right? Now we need to figure out what needs to be put into place so that that vision can become a reality. So what are we actionably doing to create a world where humanity is one, where we come together and we help the planet, where we help each other, where we really address the critical needs of humanity and of the earth right now? It's time to really create a plan. So with that being said, I'm going to stop the screen here and we're going to move into our human design to keep going deeper into what is up this week. So today, Monday, if you watched last week's Power Divination, then you are already introduced to the Cross of the Alpha, which began on Friday of last week. The Cross of the Alpha, remember, is all about stepping into leadership, to finding our strength within ourselves, to lead ourselves, right? To no longer be putting our energy into something outside of ourselves to lead us, to really taking our power back and stepping into our own leadership and developing a higher octave of leadership that's no longer about having followers, that's more about empowering everyone to lead themselves, right? We are still in projector energy. We're bouncing back and forth this week between projector and generator energy. For all my non-energy types, my projectors, my reflectors, my manifestors, from Tuesday, Wednesday last week, you might have felt like, oh, I need to rest more, because we went into projector energy after a high of almost a month of pure generator energy with spikes of manifesting generator energy. It means we got a lot of stuff done. I know myself as a projector, I achieved and accomplished and completed so many things in the beginning of this month, and I really am grateful for those moments when there is generator energy coming in from the collective to energize my projects and my creations as a non-energy type. That being said, I also was like, oh yes, I can rest, I can organize my schedule to have more self-care. I think 2 days of last week, I got 2 massages on 2 days, which was like so much body care, so much self-care, which is really what the projector energy is all about. It's about understanding when to take action, when we are invited to, and the rest of the time we're really just caring for our bodies and making sure that our energy stays clean. So we are going to have some generator energy to get some things moving again this week. That being said, Monday today, we are in projector energy. And as you can see, we are wide open from the throat down, right? So this is a very mentally stimulating energy. It might be a really great time for you to be creating plans for yourself, to be analyzing everything that you have been realizing from within and really taking it and putting it into order. And you might have started to feel that tapping in over the weekend. I know yesterday, today's Sunday when I'm filming this. So yesterday, Saturday, I was just making all these plans and doing all these structures, because that's what really what the cross of Alpha with all this mental energy is inviting us to do, like create some order, create some structure. Now, Tuesday, we're going to be shifting out of the Alpha energy. And from Tuesday through Friday, we are going to be in the right angle cross of the 4 ways. Right angle cross of the 4 ways. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, Tuesday, we also tap into some generator energy. Wednesday, generator energy. Thursday, generator energy. Friday, we get back into projector for a day or so. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if you've been feeling like, oh, I need to be resting and doing things and resting, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for my non-energy types, great time to be taking action. We also have the heart center, willpower center defined on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which means it is an incredible time to really be taking aligned action. So let's talk about the right angle cross of the 4 ways, shall we? Now, with this energy, it's all about, it's a very mental energy that has a very active mind. And you'll see the mind centers are defined throughout this whole cross. So you might be experiencing a lot of mental pressure right now, and mental pressure can come in a myriad of ways. One of those ways can come in as confusion, like so much pressure, I don't know what to do, I get confused by it all, or it could come in as like a really active mind and the monkey mind's running wild. And ultimately, what the cross of the 4 ways wants us to do is to actually stop and meditate, to bring our mind into a state of contemplation and discovery outside of the mind, to actually reach outside of our own mind and contemplate and discover our amazing capacity to tap into the real mysteries of life and to contemplate why we're here. And within the cross of the 4 ways, people who are born into this cross, they are on a life of really assimilating the profound truths of the universe. So it's a time of really unlocking the deeper recesses of our unconscious memory to see how these memories are currently still shaping our reality and then changing them. So Tuesday through Friday, we have a really potent little alchemical portal to unlock our unconscious, to tap in to what programs and patterns might be running behind the surface and keeping us from what we really want to be creating. Because our conscious can have a vision for something and have a goal for something and have a plan for something. If our unconscious is out of alignment with that, then it will be very difficult for us to create it. Now, from that standpoint, within this cross helps us to unlock those memories and then contemplate, disseminate the information, and realize what needs to be changed, and then going in and changing them. Now, with this cross, there is this energy of this pull between the inner and the outer, where the outer wants to go out and explore the world and find the answers outside of itself and to seek for knowledge and truth and information. And then this other part comes in. It was like, well, no, but I really want to sit and contemplate and sit deeply internally. So within this energy, balance within this week, as a lot of things might be changing, as a lot of relationships might be changing, as a lot of new patterns might be revealing themselves, balance is so key. And if you're someone who struggles with balance, something that actually helps you to grow in balance and even in your mind, is through doing balancing postures, right? Standing on one leg, standing in your tree pose for those yogis out there, right? Actually bringing yourself into challenging your own sense of balance. That will help you to find balance, not only physically, mentally and emotionally and spiritually as well, which is a huge, significant piece of unlocking those deeper recesses within our mind. Because as we start to uncover these memories, if there are parts of ourselves that are really out of resonance with them, it can really bring a great struggle to understand how to create these changes. So the recommendation for really navigating this energy is to take time throughout this week, even though it is that generator energy that this cross is operating through, to be in silence. When you're in silence, you have access to the most profound truths that are available. And it is only through silence that we gain access to these truths. So if you are someone who does not normally meditate, or does not have a meditation practice, or has a very active, chattery mind, like, this is the time to really practice your meditation, to contemplate, to really go in, because you can unlock memories and patterns and unconscious stories and programs that are not serving you. So utilize this energy to grow, right? Because these patterns, they're going to keep just creating the same thing over and over again. And significantly, relational patterns, right? Really unlocking why these same relationships keep showing up over and over and over again. Now, from that standpoint, looking at our genes, let's shift into our genes here. So from Tuesday all the way, 1931, Sun and Earth consciously. Wednesday, 1933, Wednesday, 1933, Thursday, 1933, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tuesday through Sunday, we are in this 1933 energy from the sun and the earth. So let's take a look at what this is. Remember, the conscious sun is our work. It is what we are to work on this week. And the 19th gate in our human design is down here in the root center, which means it's a pressure gate. And this is the pressure to decide whether or not a relationship is in the highest and best. It is a very sensitive gate, and it's very sensitive to the emotions. If a relationship doesn't feel good, there will likely be no intimacy. So it's also dealing with emotional intimacy and how we connect to someone, and how that connection then decides whether or not this is a person that we should, really invest our time in being in a relationship in. Now, this energy is also about touch, physical touch, and the desire to be touched or not for physical intimacy. When true intimacy is felt, then a decision can be made to formally bond a relationship, right? And often that initial thing is through how we feel when we are touched by this person. Now, the shadow of this gene is codependence. The gift is sensitivity, and the siddhi is sacrifice, right? So the shadow of codependence is really deeply rooted in our ancestral past and our tribal past. And it's a state of consciousness that relies on outside support. And it's ultimately responsible for the creation of religions, right? So we're going even deeper than what are these dynamics? How do these genes really create our reality? So at the shadow of this gene, we're really looking at, religion. And from our primitive ways, how we relied on nature for our survival, and then anthropomorphized nature, creating these gods to represent nature. And from this space, and from this relationship with these gods or God, is codependent relating, because it's based on our need for some outside authority to control our lives. And so long as humans continue to believe in a God or gods outside of themselves, we will remain in the shadow of this gene. And it relates to human suffering, because suffering depends on something that has authority over ourselves, right? And that is a higher frequency. So the authority over ourselves, we say, okay, this thing is like God, it has a higher frequency than I am, so it must have authority over me. And it keeps us codependent to that higher frequency that's outside of ourselves. And what ends up happening is we never unlock our own higher frequencies because we are reliant on something outside of ourselves to hold that higher frequency for us. So it keeps us locked in phase at the lower frequency, staying a victim to some God outside of ourselves. Now, this keeps us then codependent to that God for our survival. And ultimately, at the core of this shadow, this codependency is a state where we have forgotten that we humans are creators. Right? So shifting out of the space of codependence requires humanity to actually start playing God more. And through genetics and physics and, our spiritual awakening, we're starting to tap into that. We're starting to tap into our creative capacity, right? I have a book coming out in February 22nd, 2020. Keep on the lookout for it. It's called Creator Consciousness. It's all about tapping into our innate ability to create our world, to become the creator again. It's all about shifting out of this shadow of this gene and into our power as sovereign creators, as independent sovereign energies who are able to create worlds, to create our reality without something outside of ourselves holding the higher frequency. It's how we unlock our higher frequencies. And through that, we begin to see that there is no higher God that's outside of ourselves. And ultimately, this gene will have us begin to really start questioning the purpose of religion. And I know a lot of you who are watching this already are. So in order for the gift of this gene to emerge, we must become independent from others and their needs and emotional states. So from this space of independence, we become highly attuned and sensitive to the needs of others, and we become able to serve others from a space of sovereignty within ourselves, which does not create codependent shadow relationships, where the person needs you in order to heal, or needs you in order to experience a sense of God, or needs you in order to know love, or know safety, or know survival, or know pleasure, whatever it is. So as we saw within the gate, this is the gift of touch. And with this awakened gift frequency of this gene, people are natural healers and therapists, and they're able to touch people not only physically, they're able to touch them emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And through this, they awaken within that person their innate ability to heal themselves. Right? At the highest of frequencies, there are no healers outside of yourselves. Right? At the highest of frequencies, there are no more healers. There are simply activators better yet said, here to activate the innate healing potential within us all, to heal ourselves. Now, moving forward here into 33. Now, 33 is in the earth sphere. So remember, the earth sphere is where we're here to grow. And it might be areas that we are experiencing some challenge this week. And this challenge is ultimately to support us to unlock the deeper purpose. So 33 is up here in the throat. And it's a gate of privacy, and it's ultimately a communication center where memory is stored. And it's called privacy because this gate naturally understands that people's stories of their lives are sacred and vulnerable and should be respected to the utmost highest, right? Our stories are sacred. And it is the ultimate witness who holds on to the memory and just holds space for the story to flow through someone without attaching to it. Now, when this gate is defined in the shadow frequencies, we must be very wise, because this gate can hold on to the past and stay stuck on the past. And with that being said, as we're moving through all this relational territory, it might be like staying stuck on a past relationship, staying stuck on a past ideal of relationship, staying stuck in a past fantasy of relationship. Now, in the gene keys, this gene is known as the final revelation, and the shadow frequency is forgetting. The gift is mindfulness, and the city is revelation. So within the 33rd gene, we're looking at samskaras. So in order for us to really unlock the potential within this gene, we must talk about what are samskaras. And samskaras are ultimately these crystallizations in our light body that hold on to memory from our other lifetimes and that create our karmic imprint in this hall of mirrors, or the illusion that we call of Maya, that keeps us in certain life patterns. Now, samskaras merge into our light body through lifetimes where they were constantly just pressured and challenged, and the emotion just grew so palpable, and the emotion wasn't released and freed, that it was able to move from the physical body into the light bodies to be carried forth throughout lifetimes. So when we're looking at these samskaras, we are looking at the deepest karmic patterns that are very emotional when we release them in a lifetime. So 33rd gene partners with 19. So we can see how forgetting and codependence, these two shadows, form together because we forget. We forget that we have these karmic experiences with people. We forget about our karma, and then we get drawn to our karma, to these karmic relationships with other people, and we get drawn to them, and then we become codependent with them, and then we think that we need them, which really we're ultimately having codependency with our own karma. So it's through these two shadows that we see our relationships have the greatest opportunities to unwind the wounding of our samskaras. And in this paradoxical world, it is our codependent relationships that wind us, right? Bind us up, wind more deeply. And it's these very relationships that give us the opportunity to unwind our deepest samskaras through piercing through the veil of our forgetting. As it is through these very challenging relationships that we begin to question our lives, we begin to question love, and we begin to question the reason for living. Now, I can only speak from my own story, my own example, right? 33, the telling of our stories that allows for a sacred awakening to remember. And the person in this life that has come into this life that I have felt the most addictive, karmic love and connection for, that I'm not with this person physically because I see what's happening, even though this karma keeps replaying itself out. When I was in the same space as this human years ago, that person energetically was the catalyst for my deepest awakening. It was through that person's reflection that I actually went through my initial awakening into the true nature of who I am and why I'm here, and set me on my, hero's quest to really heal. To see that I didn't love myself, I didn't like myself, I didn't like being here. I definitely was angry and alone and all these things, that through this potent relationship opportunity from our karma of lifetimes of being in the illusion together, I was able to unlock that and burst my heart open in incredibly painful ways, right? These types of relationships, they are painful on our hearts. And I can't recall what Buddhist tradition says this. That being said, one of the Buddhist traditions speak to the recognition of how do we recognize these relationships when they come on. We recognize them because we feel this like lust for them, this heart pounding, sweaty palms, butterflies in our stomach, lust, like need and passion for this person. That's how we recognize our karmic relations. And the funny thing about that is that we have been programmed and conditioned to think that that feeling means that that person is our life partner. What the Buddhists would say is that our life partner, when they come in, we don't feel any of that. What we feel is a deep sense of peace and ease and comfort and understanding with this other being. So the key to us rising out of the shadow of this gene is through recognizing these relationships when they come. Recognizing them through what happens in our body. Recognizing them through what happens in our mind. If we immediately become like addicted, I have to talk to this person, I have to see them again, I have to da 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 da. These are all signs that this is a karmic relationship. And ultimately, how we navigate through these relationships is we actually stop ourselves, become our own heroine or hero, and we pull ourselves out of the illusion of staying codependent from that relationship. Now, what I did is I up and moved myself far away, all the way across the country, because I saw what that was. And I saw the life path that I would go on if I stayed close to this codependent karmic relation. And I did that so that I could pull back the illusion that I was unable to see when I was in this person's aura, because it was so strong and so alluring to be in their aura, because we shared such deep, long-standing lifetimes of love and support and growth, and also deep karma. So when we dissolve the illusion and we peel back the veil and we remember, why am I drawn to this person? We access the magic that transforms codependent relationships. And as we raise this gene into the higher frequencies, mindfulness emerges, and we are no longer fueled by desires and fears and reactions to our samskaras. We become aware and mindful of how we're showing up. Now, we still might hide from time to time because we're evolving, we're growing, we have a lot of patterns, a lot of shadows that we are all navigating. And as we grow into new octaves, we open up over here, and then this over here becomes more advanced. The maze to access this over here becomes more advanced, right? So we go through phases of revealing truth and then hiding from ourselves, revealing truth and then hiding from ourselves. In the shadow frequency, we are asleep, we are unconscious to how we're showing up in our samskaras. At the gift frequency of this gene, we are conscious, mindful to how we're showing up, able to see the patterns. Now, that relationship that I mentioned earlier in this video, that 1.5-month relationship, the beauty of what that container was is that we both showed up and said, I see you. I see that this is going to be the most challenging 1.5 months of our lives, that we together can unlock and remember and no longer hide from ourselves. So we entered into that with awareness and mindfulness to how we would show up and to what would be possible through that union, and to the awareness that that union was going to dissolve in a very short amount of time. And we both said, are you willing to do this? Do you want to do this? Are you ready for this? And we both said yes. So we went into that. We had the conversation though about it, and if one of us would have said no, then we wouldn't have went into it. right? Both people have to be aware and conscious about what is going to be unlocked in that container for karmic relationships to spiral up and out. So as we become more and more able to see through our own unconscious tendencies in relating, we begin to unwind more of our karma and release ourselves from these samskara cycles of suffering. And we become able to stop ourselves in a moment from acting in a way that is argumentative or otherwise negatively expressed, and realize that we have forgotten in that moment, and remind ourselves of our greater essence. So relational patterns might be really coming to the surface right now. Past relationship patterns, karmic relationships. We're also going to see, as we navigate the energy of this week, Tuesday, triple split definition, Wednesday, triple split, Thursday, quadruple split, right? When we're looking at splits, we're looking at the definition. Thursday, every single center is defined. And then we ask the question, are they all connected? So the crown and the ajna are connected here. Now the ajna and the throat don't connect, right? So one first split. Then we see the throat is connected to the G center. With the throat and the G center are not connected above, and they're not connected below. So here's our second split. Then we look at the heart. The heart and the spleen are connected, and the spleen and the sacral center are connected. These three, though, are not connected to these. So here's our third split. And then we see our solar plexus is connected to our root. Fourth split. Quadruple split. When we're working with triple and quadruple splits, this is an energy of like really wanting to experience a lot of different people. And through all these different people, we plug in different energies within ourselves. We access different energies within ourselves, and we get to experience more. So dating, right? Going on multiple dates this week, instead of really thinking about solidifying if you are not in a relationship, right? It's more about experiencing lots of different types of people at this time. Those people could be friends, right? It doesn't have to be an intimate partnership. So let us look here at what's happening in the unconscious, because we have Monday through Friday, the same energies unconsciously, and these energies actually began last week. So we're going to be looking here first at the unconscious sun in 44. So 44, design sun, remember this is unconscious, this is where we are at around 3 months before the sun, where it's at today. So in the sun of our design, our unconscious sun, we are looking at what we access, what gifts we awaken when we allow ourselves to go through the evolution of what we just spoke about in 33, the samskaras. 44 is in the spleen, right down here. It's a little 44 there. And it is the gate of surrender. Now, the spleen brings about an environment of fear. All of the gates within the spleen have fear that allows for instinctive survival. And the fear of this gate creates this alertness to our environment, right? And it's important for this gate to recognize when there are preconditions in an environment. So entering into an environment that has preconditions for you being there is the wrong environment for you. No bargains, no obligations, right? So ultimately, what we are looking at again in Gene 44 is karmic. What is the precondition of an environment? It is our karma with that environment. And now 44 is looking specifically at karmic relationships. Are we seeing the theme written in the astrology, coded into our DNA? Are we seeing now through all these power divinations how we are one with the universe? So the shadow of this gene is interference, the gift is teamwork, and the siddhi is synarchy. Now, when we're looking at this gene, we're looking at human fractal relationships. Fractals are patterns of the universe that are self-similar and repeating. And from this sense, our human relationships, these fractals create our karmic ties. So where every person in our life that we meet is a part of our overall fractal pattern of our destiny. When you read Creator Consciousness, I give a really great example of how our soul is sitting, and it's like looking at all these patterns and all these fractals, and it's like moving them along as we're growing and evolving. So stay tuned. That being said, when we're looking at this gene, we're looking at these fractal patterns, and every person that we're meeting is a part of our destiny, right? And it relates to the knowing that because of these fractal patterns, we will always be drawn to relationships that will teach us exactly what we need to know in order for us to grow and evolve our awareness. How awesome is that, right? Now, through the 44th gene, human relationships are drawn towards each other, which brings us the link of our ancestral karma, right? So now we're looking at in the shadow of interference. Like interference is like a virus to the master program of the universe that is destined to bring us certain relational patterns, and it's destined for those relational patterns to surface at the exact perfect moment in order for us to disrupt the karmic cycle and to spiral up and out of it. Now, interference, though, comes in with all this ancestral and genetic baggage. And these experiences and these relationships are intense and strong and oftentimes very painful and challenging. And it's through these relationships that we're actually able to clear entire fractal lines of ancestral karma, which clears interference patterns at the genetic level, right? Pretty amazing stuff here. Now, through conscious relating, what we talked about in the last gene, we can clear collective genetic dysfunctions in our relationships. Now, I've had this conversation with clients before around how certain relationship patterns that were showing up for them. I was like, hey, this is a relationship pattern that is in the collective. Women have this programmed into their biology. So as you clear this, I've cleared this, other women have cleared this, we've cleared this, and we keep clearing this to clear this genetic dysfunction from how people relate to each other. So these really poignant relationships are not only clearing our karma, they're not only clearing our family's karma, they go in and they start clearing collective karma. It's a doozy. So the people who are in these relationships, the two or however many people are in these relationships, they must be willing to take on the ancestral interference patterns of their entire fractal in order for it to be cleared and no longer self-creating in the generations to come. Now, many of you who identify as being the black sheep of the family, you feel like I am, or you've said, I am here to clear this so that my generational line is cleared from this, that this pattern no longer continues to perpetuate itself, right? I felt that pattern. There was a pattern in my mother's bloodline of like women having children at 16 years and then giving those children up for adoption. And then those people like really suffering because adoption brings in a whole level of really deep internal challenges. And when I was 16, I was like, there's no way I'm having sex because I am not repeating this pattern, right? I refuse to repeat this. I am clearing this so that no other women in my storyline, in my genetics, goes through that cycle again, right? That's an example of it, right? We clear it so that it doesn't continue to perpetuate itself, continue to self-create through every generation. Right? So in the gift frequency of 44, we are actually looking at, in the 44th gene, our olfactory, our sense of smell. So people who have this gene naturally in their hologram, I am someone who does, other people who have 44, we literally develop the ability to smell our people. And it's not like necessarily like your sense of smell as you know it. It's more of our pheromonal smell. It's this frequency of a smell. And through just being in close contact with people, we can intuitively know someone's true nature. So with this being in the collective right now, you are more readily able to tell the true nature of the people who are around you, and whether or not those people are serving you or not, whether it be intimate relations or friendships or business partnerships or whatever it is. And it's literally an ability for our entire immune system, every pore in our skin, to pick up on hormones and pheromones and to sense whether or not those people make a good team, so that we can forge the synarchy, which is where we're all working together in harmony. Right? So if you're getting this like intuitive sense about people right now that are in your life and you're like, why is this coming up? Because we're here to realize this gift, this ability to know our people when we meet them, and we must be in contact with them, in physical contact with them. And it might be as obvious as like really not enjoying their smell. If you don't enjoy their smell, chances are you're not going to want to keep working with them, right? So it might be that obvious, or it might be really subtle, right? Now let's go into our deeper purpose. So the deeper purpose is stored within our unconscious earth. This is what, the oversoul level of humanity is wanting us to tap into, this deeper purpose, the 24, which is in the Ajna center. And 24 is a rationalization gene and gate, and it brings the inspiration from 61, and it must make sense of it, right? It must rationalize and understand and like realize, how do I actually take this and take this inspiration and turn it into something that can be rationally communicated to others, right? So ultimately, it's like making sense of things, then be able to disseminate that information to others. Now, within the gene keys, it's known as silence. And this is where we get into that conversation of addiction that I brought up in the beginning of this Power Divination, because the shadow of this gene is addiction. The gift is invention, and the city is silence. Right? Silence is a acidic state. Addiction helps us to understand how humans continue to stay in these patterns. To see the shadow of addiction, we must look to the mind and our brains, because many people are not concerned with consciousness. They're not really thinking for themselves. They're purely repeating patterns that were conditioned by their parents and their environment, and they follow those patterns their whole lives. These synaptic roots in the ganglia of our brain create these patterns of thinking that become familiar, and then we familiarize ourselves with them, and then it's just natural. We just keep thinking this way, and we actually have to work neurologically to find new ways of thinking. And being in these patterns, in these paved pathways, it is addiction to be in these pathways. And it's not a psychological disorder, it's a behavioral code that is self-limiting to the entire human species, where we don't even recognize that we're addicted to these relational patterns, to these life patterns, to these career patterns, these financial patterns, to these environmental patterns, and all these patterns that we just become addicted to. I have this conversation with the people in my group just last Friday about how when we start to heal and we start to pull off the layers of conditioning, this energy comes up of grief. Our pain body comes in and it says, no, you need me. You don't know how to live on this world without me. You must keep me. You must stay here. And that grief comes on, and that grief is so electrical in our being that we want to stop progression. We resist it because the pain body, we're addicted to our own pain body. We're addicted to our own suffering, which is very hard to hear that. When we look at the world around us, we can see the reality of it. Because the shadow of addiction ensures that people don't really change. And it actually keeps them numb or distracted from ever fully realizing and having an awareness of their addiction. And there can be moments or gaps. And in these gaps, we realize we have a sudden spontaneous awareness of an addictive pattern. And we have a choice in these gaps. We have a choice to either numb out, because in these gaps, there's such an emptiness. We could get lost in the gap. And we might not want to feel that emptiness. So we either go to turn to our addictions to numb out, or we break that addictive cycle. And we let ourselves sit in the silence of the emptiness, because in the silence, we give birth to the gift of invention. And invention is this gift of thinking and acting in totally unique and original ways. And it's only when we have gone inward to look for the source of our own suffering will we finally face the addictive quality of our own mind. If you've ever gone and sat in a Vipassana meditation practice, you have likely started to pierce into the source of your own suffering and this addiction, these addictive patterns, because that practice forces you to sit in it and to really look at how addictive we actually are. And through our willingness to stay in those moments, to stay in our silence, to stay sitting in the immense pain and discomfort that we feel when we sit in the realization of our addictive patterns, when we confront the mind, and we create the pause that is necessary to actually disentangle our mind and body from our astral body and our desires. Then we start to purify our astral body, purifying the emotional body, right? Purifying the samskaras. And we start to tap into true source, consciousness, purity. And in order for us to access the gift of invention, we must take the gaps in our awareness and fully surrender to them and fully embrace them and fully pause and be willing to sit in the silence of our own fears, the discomfort of our own fears, and resist the temptation and pattern to numb it with external addictions, to numb it with people or prayer or worship or sex or drugs or alcohol or food or TV or books or anything outside of ourselves. Because it's through this 24 sitting in it that we realize our own genius. And when we realize our own genius, we're able to make quantum leaps forward. And invention, what is an inventor? They bring new things into the world, which means that our genius is what brings new things into the world. Hope we're picking up what's being put down here, because it goes deep. Now let's wrap this up here with Saturday, Sunday. We get a shift. We get a shift into the cross of refinement, Saturday, Sunday. Still in 1933 though, conscious sun and earth. Now refinement is a state of restoring purity. I love this cross. I love purity. It's all about bringing purity and refinement into an impure and careless world. And in order to do this, we must recognize the key to discovering our true purpose is through our alignment. This cross is an inner attunement to creativity and beauty and is especially particular about its environment, feeling the urge to constantly be reorganizing, recreating, and refreshing everywhere we go to keep the energy moving and flowing. The more clear and pure that we become within, the more easy it is to be enriched by life, by our environment, and vice versa. When we are unsettled and unclear, life will seem gloomy. Having an enriched environment is the key for us to have a fulfilling life. Now, be wise, as the shadow side can constantly want to be cleaning and organizing and cleaning up for others, right? Which weighs on us because we're constantly cleaning up after others, when really the only person that we can truly clean up for is ourselves. So use this energy next week to, it's maybe a little early for spring cleaning. That being said, we're in February. You never know. Weather is ever changing. It might be time to start reorganizing things, move things around, get the energy in your space flowing, clean things, declutter, donate things, release things. If you have boxes that you haven't opened, open them, release them. If you have closet full of clothes that you don't use, release them, donate them. If you have books that you're not going to read, release them, donate them, create space for new energy to flow. So, as you can see, we are really in a time of looking at relations, a time of decluttering, a time of finding purity. And if relationships are being released right now, trust that it is serving your highest and best. Tune into your body and recognize if relationships are coming in right now, whether or not those are karmic patterns you want to keep repeating. As always, this Power Divination is here to serve your highest and best, to use this information to discern for yourself how you can best show up to live the life of your dreams. If you resonate with the Power Divination, please share it with your friends. Spread the word, help people realize that this here exists, and subscribe to this YouTube page, because every Monday we're bringing you new Power Divinations to support your evolution and the collective evolution into a more loved world. I am Ahaumna, and it is such a pleasure and honor to give you this transmission. I will see you all next week. Bye.